Hello, this is Danny Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. This is the promised follow-on to my video about the things in Starfield that made me appreciate Star Citizen. Like the prior video, I am going to be talking about Starfield as it exists unmodded and about Star Citizen as it exists right now in 3.21. Not what has been promised or talked about or what Squadron 42 might be like. That's why the title of this video is Things That Has Made Me Impatient About, because most of the things I'm going to be talking about have at least been hinted about, but so far are absent or nearly absent. Which also means that because I mentioned something about Starfield should not be taken as saying that Starfield's implementation of them is exemplary, only that they are better than nothing, which is what Star Citizen's implementation frequently is. It also doesn't mean that I'm saying that when Star Citizen does have something more than nothing, it should be implemented Starfield's way. Just the differences between single and multiplayer alone would suggest that you would do these things differently for Star Citizen, something that I've been cautioning about quite a bit about the press to migrate features from Squadron 42 to Star Citizen. Now, I thought I would start with something that might make a difference to you, but doesn't to me. And that is frame rate. Sure, I like to see if I can capture at 60 frames per second, but that is only so if I want to, I can slow motion the capture and still have it look good to you at 30 frames per second. Similarly, I've started capturing at 1.4K, mostly because it means I can zoom in on something to highlight it and still have it maintain sharpness at 1080. It simply doesn't change my fun, and the folks who frankly behave like frame rate snobs remind me of the guys I knew in college who would spend a ton of money on an amplifier with 0.1% less total harmonic distortion, who would sneer and say, well, I can hear the difference, even if you can't. The second thing that I can't just get into is crafting. I've not gotten into it in any MMO that I've ever played or tested. The reason is a bit more proactive, though. Add crafting to a game, and not only do you have to make sure that the stock weapon isn't OP, but that every combination of modifications to it also aren't OP. It's just a balanced nightmare that I think the effort would be better vested elsewhere. Now for the first thing that does resonate with me. Narrative. This is a big one. Star Citizen has a rich lore, actually a better lore than Starfield's, but there's just so little expression of the individual stories and broader stories and your impact upon those stories. It remains disappointing that the best piece of narrative storytelling in the verse is still the Elaine Ward investigation mission. Number 2, feature characters. Going hand in hand with the lack of narrative is the lack of feature characters. Some of the best ones, like Tessa Bannister, are no longer in the game, and some, like Agent Dooley, are only there for particular events. I know there's a ton of work to create these, but there are ways of economizing. Have some, like Tessa Bannister, just be voices on the radio. Number 3, quest lines. Then continuing with narrative and feature content is the notion of quest lines and progression. Now, the problem with quest lines in an MMO is that you blow through them so fast in a single-player game and everybody gets the same quest line. But there are ways of getting around that. At each reputation level, there is one mission that advances the storyline, but it is randomly placed among the generic missions of that level that the feature character gives, and the starting description isn't distinguishable. Then, surprise, you run into a clue in the big picture, and you have a run-in with the feature character, repeat in the next reputation level. So nobody's advancement with the story is going to be exactly the same, yet there still is for everyone a sense of progression, and also a sense of surprise, which is also very valuable. Number 4, general NPC activity. Some critics of Starfield say the NPCs are doing nothing but walking around. Those critics are not Star Citizen players. We are all instead saying, oh my God, they're walking. They're all walking. Number 5, chatter. Yeah, and even better, many of them are talking. Sure, nothing important, very likely just walla, which is a technical term for random mumbling like one side of a cell phone conversation, but at least it gives a little real person feel than everybody standing there mute. Number 6, reactions. It doesn't happen nearly as much as it should, and I've known we see demonstrations of it in Squadron, but it's really cool when passerbys react to who you are. For example, I earned and was wearing the armor of the legendary Mantis crime fighter, and the first time I wore it to the city, there were a few very surprised reactions. But honestly, they stopped pretty quickly. And when I started a new faction questline, they were still calling me the new guy, even though I was wearing the costume of this legendary vigilante. So, yes, Starfield does a better job than the non-existent Star Citizen, but even Starfield's implementation could use a lot of improvement. Number 7, ship modularity and color selection. Also, I am absolutely not asking for Star Citizen to switch to Starfield's Lego-like kit bashing of ships, although I did suggest a while back a pseudo-manufacturer in Pyro who just sprayed hull metal to kludge together Frankenstein ships in their scrapyards. But it does make me impatient for the user-facing modularity on ships like the Caterpillar that has been promised for so long. Also, the ability to custom paint our ships. Again, a while back, I recognized the challenges of completely free-form paint palettes and the difference between just colors and materials. But in that last video, I also suggested how to work around that. So I can still feel impatient about it. Number 8, base building. The base building system in Starfield is also something that I wouldn't want to do as is in Star Citizen, but it does make me impatient for whatever it is that Star Citizen will do. And it will definitely be different. Bases in Starfield are mostly centers for passive extraction of resources. Star Citizen already has a much more active mining system, and CIG has already said that they do not want to encourage passive income. So it seems that what we'll be seeing in Star Citizen bases, when we get them, will be centered on personal hangars and more of a center for logistics and mustering rather than resource farms. But I'm impatient for them either way. Number 9, connection to the life story, parents, marriage, etc. Doing the parent stuff in Starfield is kind of corny, but corny in an entirely right sort of way. Starfield not only does better with the larger narrative, but also gives support to the idea of a personal narrative. Now, admittedly, that is easily done in a single-player game, but there is also in Star Citizen even the suggestion that anybody has a broader story. No schools, no playgrounds, no children NPC with their parents, no old people. Now, someone would say that there are no children in the game because we're all just immortal consciousnesses downloaded into an unending sequence of manufactured corpuses, eliminating both the need and desire to procreate. Wow, what a really dark final chapter for humanity. See, lore team, I told you there was no good to come from creating an in-world explanation for respawning. Number 10, connection to institutions. In the mast building, there is in New Atlantis a museum of history of the UC. Completely slanted, of course, but still a connection point to the UC's history and to the Vanguard. In Star Citizen, we get very momentary connections to the broader history and institutions of the verse, such as during Xenothreat or during Invictus Launch Week. But otherwise, do you know where the Advocacy or Navy even have an office or contact point in Stanton? Number 11, dangerous creatures. If you had asked me before Starfield came out how important it was to have dangerous creatures to defend against, I would have given it a shrug. I thought I could take it or leave it. But honestly, the dangerous creatures in Starfield, even if sometimes robotic, can really get your adrenaline going. We've seen concept art from CIG of a Yeti-like creature and a really frightening crab-like creature. It's good concept art, but, concept art. Not having it can certainly make you impatient. Number 12, an actual hacking minigame. We've been told that the system of crypto keys where you just plug them in and watch the progress bar filled was a Tier 0 implementation that would be replaced by a minigame, and we've even been teased at various times that they've been working on it. Personally, I think it might be one of those things that already have a solution that is already functioning in Squadron for it, but don't want to spoil it. But having a pretty nice minigame in Starfield has made me more impatient. 13, jetpacks. And finally, something that doesn't make me impatient because it was never really promised about the game, jetpacks. Now, no two ways about it, jetpacks are cool. I also love all the other ground transportation options in Star Citizen, unquestionably, and they do reduce the need for jetpacks. But what can I say? Jetpacks are cool. We already have backpacks in the game. Just have some that are far less storage space, quite heavy, but in outdoor situations can give you a double jump capability and the capability to halt yourself when falling at terminal velocity. Now, I know that nothing like this has been promised, but if it was, hey, take my money. I'm already impatient for it. Now for an update on our giveaways. With the Hull C giveaway complete, congratulations, Mark Booster. We now have our IAE Week ship giveaway for the winner's choice of either the Galaxy Complete, the Master Modular Mining Moving Medical Machine, or the brand new Big Box Bargain Bazaar, aka the Merchantman, or $100 of Steam Store credit. Just be a member and be entered automatically, or subscribe and comment, including the secret word. And the secret word for this video is what I said that would make me say, just take my money. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond for Ray's Guide.
I was only a teenager when my father died, passing command of the ship to me, as is tradition. Because of that, I've had to sort of an apprenticeship under the prior captain. I think some people on the ship resent me.